A Menominee Falls couple donates their daughter's brain for science, only to learn the hospital threw it out.
FOX6 investigator Brian Polson shows you the unexplained error that has Children's Wisconsin apologizing to a family racked with grief. Brian is here joining us in studio.
Now, guys, it wasn't the whole brain, okay, but it was, according to the researcher who asked for it to be preserved, the most important part. The brain belonged to Ashton Fellens, one of the first patients in America to undergo gene therapy for a genetic brain disease. The doctor who performed that pioneering surgery more than 20 years ago says Ashton's brain was a treasure that is now forever lost.
She never spoke a word with her voice, but Ashton Fellens could deliver a sonnet with her eyes.
She was a beautiful baby.
She seemed perfectly healthy at birth.
Then she started missing milestones, being able to lift up her head.
Within 6 months, her parents, Arlo and Scott Fellens, knew something
We'd like to set an appointment for you to come in and talk with us.
Was seriously wrong.
And I said, can you tell me this? Do I need to have my priest and my family with us ready at my home when I come back from the doctor's appointment? And she said, well, I think that might be a good idea.
Ashton had Canavan disease, a rare genetic disorder that attacks the protective coating around nerves in the brain and spinal cord.
The myelin doesn't get sent to the body and all the body functions stop happening.
As white matter in the brain progressively degenerates, children with Canavan become trapped inside their own bodies, like living rag dolls.
I think the hardest part was coming home and telling our family and friends.
Doctors told the Fellens their daughter would die before age 10.
So I felt like every time she had a birthday, it was a countdown.
So they enrolled her in a study that offered hope for a better life.
Aki, aki, aki.
And just after her third birthday,
All right, we got the stretcher part right now.
Ashton became one of 16 children to take part in a nationwide clinical trial for gene therapy.
To introduce a functional gene in the brain.
Dr. Paula Leone performed the surgery, the first to inject a viral vector directly into the brain.
Hi. Ashton. Are you in the hospital today? Are you happy?
It was never intended to be a cure.
We're very happy with the result. The surgery was successful, was very safe.
But in the days and months after,
Are you seeing that? Because I'm seeing that.
Ashton started moving her hands and fingers.
I noticed that she can actually look at me now.
More alert, seemed to be more comfortable, happier.
Ashton Fellens has a rare brain disorder.
Her story made headlines in Wisconsin.
A girl in Menominee Falls will help New Jersey make history.
And spurred legislation approving stem cell research halfway across the country.
So Ashton was a hero.
Instead of dying before the age of 10, Ashton lived into her teens and then her 20s.
Yes,
that seems like a success.
it is a success. That is a success.
But eventually her health declined. And in December, at the age of 24, Ashton's parents had to say goodbye.
Her body worked as long and as hard as it could until the very end.
But first,
In a final act of selflessness and devotion to others, Ashton family honor her wish to donate her tissue to research.
they made a plan to ensure Ashton's hope would live on.
I knew that's what we wanted to do, was to donate her brain.
No question that we had to do that. It was a big part of her legacy.
Dr. Leone delivered Ashton's eulogy.
Her powerful voice, encrypted in her DNA, will deliver life-saving messages.
Just hours after arranging the protocol for Children's Wisconsin to preserve her brain.
The scenario was perfect. She was in the hospital. The dry ice was there, ready to go.
The tissue was to be shipped to a living biobank in Dayton, Ohio.
They were supposed to send it right away.
But the shipment
I would have expected a specimen a week later.
never came.
I mean, I gave the address, the FedEx number, everything was ready to go.
More than a month after Ashton's death, Dr. Lauren Parsons, director of the pathology lab at Children's Wisconsin, blamed the delay on leadership transitions. She promised to send the brain as planned, but once again, nothing happened. And then
We follow up with emails, no reply. Other emails, no reply.
Dr. Parsons stopped responding.
She literally ghosted her for 2 months.
More than 3 months after Ashton's death, Arlo got a familiar phone call.
Hi, Arlo. This is Jessica giving you a call back with grief services here at Children's.
Children's wanted to meet with the family face to face.
When that happens, I know it's going to be bad news.
Arlo insisted they tell her over the phone.
They regret to tell me that her brain was disposed of.
They threw your daughter's brain away.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. They tossed out her brain. How can you do that with a brain?
Ashton's brain was separated into hemispheres, half preserved in a fixed solution, the other half frozen. And while the fixed half was eventually shipped to Ohio, the hospital says the frozen portion had been inadvertently discarded during a lab move. And Dr. Leone says the frozen half was by far the most valuable for research.
And I was like, how can you discard something so valuable? And they kept just saying, well, we're sorry. We couldn't, it was just disposal. We can't tell you anything more.
It was literally like losing Ashton all over again.
For Dr. Leone,
The loss is tremendous.
the impact is both personal and professional.
It's irreplaceable. Irreplaceable.
She says Ashton's brain was uniquely invaluable for research into the long-term effects of gene therapies, not just for Canavan, but perhaps even diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
This would have just paved the way for any other application of gene therapy into the brain to let us know if DNA can persist.
You can't put a price on it.
No, there's no price for that.
Children's Wisconsin calls it a highly unique situation and says it is profoundly sorry for the error. But the Fellons say sorry is not enough, especially since they feel the hospital hid the truth for months.
I think that they couldn't figure out what to say and how they were going to get out of this because they know it's bad.
The family has now hired attorney James Gendy to represent them.
If Ashton cannot help in the research, then maybe we can sue them and help the research financially.
If Ashton's brain can't help science, they figure, maybe her money will.
Then Ashton can have some meaning in her life after her death.
Children's Wisconsin declined our request for an on-camera interview, and in a statement, a spokesman writes that they have comprehensive processes in place to manage tissue donations, but that aspects of those processes were not followed in this case. The statement adds, Children's is taking steps including re-educating staff and performing an internal quality review to ensure this does not happen again.
Brian, Ashton died in December, but the family didn't find out about this mistake until March. What took so long?
Well, I asked them that very question. In an email, Children's told me that several factors affected the gap in the time, from securing consent forms at the outset to the movement of the laboratory to, quote, various scheduling matters, end quote. They didn't really explain what that meant. The hospital insists leadership changes, though, had nothing to do with it, in spite of that email you saw. In the end, a spokesperson writes, none of that is an excuse for the remaining tissue sample being accidentally disposed of and for the delay in realizing and communicating this error. You can see the hospital's complete comments on the Fox local app. Now, while Ashton's brain may be lost, Ashton's hope goes on. That is the name of the fund the Fellons family has set up at St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in Pewaukee. Ashton's Hope supports families and children with Canavan disease around the world by supplying them with medical equipment. You can find a link to Ashton's Hope on Fox Local.
We'll never truly know what was lost through this.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, can any of this ever be recovered? There's no way of going back and getting her brain back.
Yeah.
FOX6 investigator Brian Polson, thank you for the story.
Thanks, Brian.